Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, folks. I'm Larry Kudlow. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. I guess the big snow, the big freeze, but not here in studio. It's all great fun. By the way, you want to hear this thing on the internet, you can live stream us. LarryKudlowShow.com. LarryKudlowShow.com. You can hear it all across the country, around the world, throughout the solar system, including the Milky Way. And please, during the week, come visit us, Fabulous Fox Business Network. The name of the show is Kudlow, 4 to 5 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. And if for some reason you can't get there at 4, why, just text your favorite 9-year-old, and she will show you how to DVR the show. Never miss a thing, 4 to 5. Davos, turning points, just fascinating to me. Donald Trump leaves Davos sitting on top of the world. Sitting on top of the world. By the way, I've been saying all week long, starting last weekend, that he was there to negotiate with respect to Greenland and the Arctic and various issues of sovereignty and military bases. He did not necessarily wish to purchase Greenland, and all these crazy left-wing media people talking about Trump's going to attack Denmark. He's going to attack NATO. It's the silliest, stupidest, most Trump derangement syndrome stuff you can possibly hear. He said in his Truth Social last weekend he was ready to negotiate. That's just what he did, and it turned out fabulously well. And he leaves Davos, as I say, sitting on top of the world, the undisputed leader in the economy, military, security, and the culture wars as well. And here's a key point. I want to make this point. Checkmating Russia and communist China in the great game of, world competition and security. He dominates the chessboard, outmaneuvering China and Russia. I mean, who are the losers here? America will set up perhaps more bases or larger bases in Greenland with some kind of sovereignty. You can leave Greenland, they run the country, or Denmark runs the country, but we'll have sovereignty over the bases. This is the British Cyprus model. It's not that hard to understand. They're going to hash it out. Shipping lanes. But the ICBMs run, Moscow. Look at a map. Moscow to Washington, D.C. runs right over Greenland. I mean, if you needed any other reason to understand the concerns of national security. And yes, the Arctic is melting somewhat. More activity, more ships. China spending money up there. Russia spending money up there. It's exactly the right thing to do. Defending the hemisphere. It is part of the Western Hemisphere. Again, look at your map. Look at Greenland. Look at Greenland and Iceland. It's part of the Western Hemisphere. Mr. Trump, obviously, the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, will not tolerate outside influences in the Western Hemisphere. Period. Full stop. That's the point about Venezuela. That's going to be the point about regime change in Cuba. It's coming. It's absolutely coming. It's the point about oil. Oil dominance plays a huge role here. We have it. Russia doesn't. China doesn't. It's very important to understand how Trump has outmaneuvered our two biggest enemies, Russia and China. The Europeans, I'm sorry. I mean, Trump reached out, by the way. He had nice things to say about Europe. not everything, for sure, but his own heritage. I mean, he had a nice little section in the speech. But the point is that this is small ball. Europe is small ball. These are smaller countries, weaker leaders. Trump sits on top of the world. So important. America's economic boom. One thing Trump said that's, I want to repeat, it's an old Reagan aphorism. You know, I worked for Reagan a long time ago, of course. The Gipper would always say that economic security at home is essential to national security abroad. Strong economy at home is essential to national security and foreign policy abroad. Mr. Trump made that point several times. Very, very important. Very, very important. And he said the United States is, our economy is the engine of the world economy. Of course it is. We're the only real free market capitalist economy. Europe has gone socialist. Maybe they're getting tired of their stagnation, but they don't grow. They're overtaxed, overspent, overregulated. They don't have the tech companies, the dominance that we have. Nothing. All they do is attack American companies. Trump made these points. And he made them well. And he got what he wanted. He secured, the whole week. He secured the Greenland deal. He established the Board of Peace for the Middle East. He had a good meeting with Zelensky. We've racked up more economic gains. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. The American economy just booming. The Trump boom is incredible. Even I think got a TikTok deal, which I never favored when I was in his first term, but whatever. And he reduced the power of Russia and communist China. And he enhanced the power of America. So important. As I said, sovereignty will be split with these military bases. They'll figure out a way to do this. It's no big deal. One thing, though, oil diplomacy, which Trump understands better than any president who has ever occupied the Oval Office. Oil diplomacy, we are producing more oil, drill baby drill. We are producing more oil and natural gas. And soon, Mr. Trump favors the nuclear expansions. That means you're putting more energy on the market. What happens? The price falls. And when that price falls, Russia is powerless. So are these other dictators. Iran, for what it's worth. Venezuela, well, we took them out, so it doesn't matter. And China's not going to get these steep discounts from Venezuela or Iran. That's gone. So China will pay more for their oil. Russia will get less. These are cases where we're damaging, our two principal superpower enemies. Oil diplomacy is so important. And we are dominant. And Mr. Trump made that point. And the Europeans destroyed their economies by buying in to the hoax of the Green New Deal and climate change and existential threats and all that nonsense. And they destroyed their economies. They destroyed their industrial bases. Germany and England. And remarkable how badly they've done. This is all the genius of Trump, who understands oil better than anybody else. And that's another reason for his great success. Dominating the world's chessboard. Outmaneuvering our enemies. I don't even know if they see it coming. And, of course, the people that don't like Trump and suffer from dislike or hatred or derangement syndrome, they never see it coming. He is a brilliant negotiator. You may not like everything he says. You may not like every tactic he uses. But he is a hell of a negotiator. The art of the deal. And he keeps telling you he's going to negotiate. People don't want to believe him. Here at home, even more on the economy. The third quarter GDP, 4.4%. According to the Atlanta Fed GDP Now tracker, the fourth quarter, which was the shutdown quarter, they're posting 5.4%. I think it'll come in lower than that because we have incomplete data from the shutdown, but whatever. Mr. Trump's 3 quarters, we can't, the first quarter of last year was Joe Biden's quarter. That was a negative quarter. GDP fell about half a point. But Trump's 3 quarters have probably come out to better than 3%. Better than 3%. As the one big beautiful bill kicks in with supply side tax cuts and deregulation. Drill, baby, drill. His reciprocal free and fair trade strategy. Think factories. Factories. That's what he loves. Building new factories. That's the way to avoid tariffs. And it's happening. There's a business boom going on. Consumers are fine. There's a business boom going on. 100% depreciation, immediate cost write-offs, machinery, equipment, tax credits, factories. You can write a factory off, I think, in 2 years. The rest of it is immediate. And you have a productivity-driven economy. Output per hour rising recently at 4%. The trend line is now running, 2.5 to 3. What that means is wages are going up, but inflation is not. Just think of it this way. It's very important. We're running about 4% plus for production wages. Okay, blue collar. Think of it as blue collar wages. Typical middle class blue collar wages. About 4%. The inflation rate is trending down towards 2. It's 2.3% on the so-called personal consumption deflator. The CPI, the core CPI, actually for the last 3 months is only 1.6%. The point is, wages are rising faster than prices. This is a Democratic baloney affordability index. Baloney. Biden was the guy who saw prices, inflation go up over 20% cumulatively, not Trump. But anyway, wages are running hotter than prices. About twice as much. That's worth about $1,500, the way I calculate it, more or less. Back of the envelope. For a typical middle-class family, kitchen table stuff, give them an extra $1,500 because wages have recovered and inflation is coming down. By the way, the lower energy prices. Lower energy dominates the economy here, too. Not just gasoline, hundreds of prices. We haven't seen the bottom yet. Inflation's, you're going to have negative prints, if you ask me, when the full impact of lower energy prices kicks in. So I think this is worth about $1,500. Now, second, already this quarter, middle-income people are going to get big tax refunds from the one big beautiful bill. This is the no tax tips, no tip tax, no tax on overtime. Seniors get a break. You buy a car loan, you get a break, at least for a while. The exact numbers are hard to figure, but I'm thinking roughly, I'm listening to Scott Bessent and reading what I can read, $1,500. The refunds will be worth $1,500 this winter or at worst early spring. So you got about $1,500 of additional money because wages are finally rising faster than prices, and a second tranche from the tax cuts. About $3,000. That's a big number. Let me tell you, that's a big number in a year. And that on top of the immediate cost expensing and the write-offs for business, you got yourself a boom. I think, and I've said this before, not only do I think some of these CPI prints could actually come in negative because of declining oil, which is a tax cut on the whole economy and both consumers and businesses, but I think the GDP could run 5, 6, or 7% for some quarters, or maybe the year. We haven't seen this since the Reagan 80s, when I was a kid working for Reagan. This is dominance. There is nobody on the planet. We are growing faster than China. Russia's not growing. Russia's in so much trouble. It's a fantastic story. It's a fantastic story. We're in the middle of a productivity boom from AI and technology. We have all these new incentives from the one big beautiful bill. And we're going to try to figure out the Federal Reserve, too. I'll save that for the next segment. You know, Trump, I'm going to tell you, the Trump economic boom unmatched by Russia or China. And he is a better diplomat than his critics and enemies could possibly understand, outmaneuvering Russia and China and the rest of the world. Trump occupies the commanding heights of the world foreign policy game. And right now he's got people checkmated. It's a terrific story. I'm Kudlow. We'll be back after this.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
One key point that Mr. Trump made in his speech at Davos, made it several times, is why rapid economic growth does not cause inflation, right? Sometimes known as the Phillips curve. If unemployment rate goes too low, such a thing, inflation's going to rise. It's like too many people working is a bad thing. It's not. It's a fabulous thing. More people working produce more factories produce more goods and services bring down prices. Trump understands this. And he said it a couple of times. The last president who talked about this in stark terms was Ronald Reagan, who understood it also. And we're in this productivity boom also. The Federal Reserve doesn't get it. The Fed wants, if things heat up, the party is too good, they want to take away the punch bowl. And so they have a bad habit of tightening interest rates and the money supply and cutting off rapid economic growth. And Trump does not want that. He wants people to take a whack at the ball and keep taking a whack and reward success. So he needs Federal Reserve chairman who's going to do that. And I still think the two Kevins, Hassett and the other one, they're the ones who are the best suited. I've seen some other names, Kevin Warsh, sorry. But those are the two guys that he should go to. You don't take the punch bowl away. Let the economy grow at 5, 6, or 7% if that's going to grow. It is not inflationary. It's great for the country. We'll take a break. We'll talk some politics on the other side with pollster John McLaughlin and commentator David Webb. I'm Kudlow. Stay with me.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
One of the really super obnoxious things out there is this sort of scandalous fake news polls. These polls come out, and you get these commentators who use bad polls, and then they start attacking Trump and saying, he's unpopular, he's going to lose the midterm elections. I hate to say it, but my old friend Karl Rove was very guilty of that in his Wall Street Journal piece this week, citing polls that are completely unbalanced and have no relationship to what past voting patterns look like. I mean, it's really a scandal, honestly. It's a fake news scandal. Trump himself blasted the New York Times Siena poll, which is as guilty as anything on this subject. So let's talk a little bit about that because I don't care what the polls say. I think people understand how well Trump is doing. And they admire the fact that he's getting stuff done, mostly what they want done. So we welcome John McLaughlin, pollster. This is my favorite pollster. He's one of my favorite people, but he's a great pollster. And we also welcome my pal David Webb, Fox News contributor, the David Webb Show, Sirius XM talk show host. So, look, the first thing I'm just going to assert, as I did in the first half hour of the show, how brilliantly Trump worked Davos and how he is checkmating Russia and China and getting what he wants and protecting the hemisphere and so forth and so on. and how brilliant the economy is doing. And then you got these crazy polls. So, we don't have, John McLaughlin, you can't say everything here, but basically the CNN poll, phony poll, the Quinnipiac poll, phony poll, the New York Times Siena poll, phony poll. And if you take a phony poll and then apply it, you're going to get a phony analysis. And, these numbers aren't, what do you got? 29% Republicans, even though they had 35% votes. And
right.
Trump gets, what do you get? They give Trump 38% Trump voters, even though he had 50% in the last election. So it's like, a 7-year-old. People in the third grade should be able to figure this out.
Well, they rarely go into the internals because what happens is the New York Times puts it out. They run their own headlines. But we've gone through this for President Trump. We've gone through this for years. Remember in 2016, there was a Hillary lock? There was no way that Trump could win, and we're telling him he could win, and it's going to be close, and we won a battleground state electoral victory. But that New York Times poll, it's 1,625 registered voters, not likely voters, and the demographics, right, only 29% Republicans, because Trump gets 90% of the Republicans in his job approval, and the same for the generic ballot for Congress. So every point you take the Republicans down from possible turnout, you're taking Trump and his own party down. But the worst was we got 50% of the national popular vote in 2024. They only have 38% Trump voters.
What do they do with the other 12%? What do they? Look, they must know this. What do they do? Yeah. What is the mathematical, quantitative excuse for this?
They don't give an excuse. They're the media, and what they do is they do it, and they know what they're doing because they fill it with voters who didn't vote, who aren't going to vote in a midterm election, which is lower, who don't like Trump 2-1, and they do it on purpose because they're trying to suppress our vote for November. And like they get somebody like Carl. Carl knows better. Carl used to attack these polls when Bush was president. That CNN poll is 1,209 adults from an online panel that their service owns. It's all computer online. They don't even call people. So they got adults, not even registered voters, let alone likely voters. And they only have 29% Republicans, and they fill it with independents who could be illegal immigrants for all we know that don't like Trump.
All right, David, let me come to David Webb. David, point here is the Wall Street Journal poll, which even John McLaughlin thinks is a good poll. Okay, it's a pretty good match. Showed, this was last weekend or 2 weekends ago, that the Republicans in Congress win on every issue. When you ask Republican Congress, Democratic Congress, inflation, border, ICE, you name it, 5 or 6 issues, they win every single issue. So you've got, that is an honest poll. These other polls are dishonest polls. Now, I just think, David Webb, I take a look at the economy and the stock market. I think people like what Trump is doing a lot. And you know what else? Pollsters can't figure out why people are so happy with a guy who gets things done, right? Not perfect, but gets stuff done, or goes out to Davos and, really puts it on a line with the Europeans and so forth. They love that. I don't care what the polls show.
Well, I hope John will still take my calls after this, and I like John, and he's part of it, but not a problem in it. So let me say it that way. There's a polling industrial complex out there, just like there's industrial complexes that attach any political term. In the polling world, and John, you see this, it's approval and disapproval, right? So those are the numbers people tack on, use to attack, do whatever. But when you go deeper into a lot of this polling and you start asking those more than, 70 million, 77 million people that voted for Trump, those independents who still support him, whoever they are, and you see that result, now you're in the 80, 90, depending on the poll you look at, sometimes mid 90 percentiles. Trump ran as a disruptor. He didn't run as someone that was going to go along to get along. What we're seeing is that when issues and desired outcomes align on security, foreign policy, economy, and more, the support is still there from those that support him. And the pollsters out there that want to twist it to drive a narrative, no matter who they are, right or left, are not being honest. So my advice to people is look at what he's delivering. Trump ran a certain way. He governs a similar way, and he continues to be effective and deliver results a certain way. That's more along the lines of alignment with why they voted for him, and not some 1,000 people undescribed under any name or umbrella that say, well, we really don't like him or we do like him. This isn't really about like or dislike. It's about accomplishment and effectiveness and desired outcomes for the people who will go back out and vote, not just for Trump, but with him back on the campaign trail, and he needs to be, for Republicans so they can keep moving forward.
Well, look, you're going to have, on that point, that's a good point, important point, the midterm election, Trump's out there, and Susie Wiles says he's going to be on the ballot because he's going to be campaigning, and they're going to work very, very. I had Reince Priebus on the show last night. He's a smart guy, and Reince was saying, one of the key issues here is to try to get the low propensity voters who might turn out in a presidential, like for Trump, get them to turn out in the midterm. And a second point he made is we talked about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is going to be hyperactive, right? He's back together with Trump. I knew they'd get together. He's not only donating a lot of money, we'll wait and see, it could be a huge amount, but he does very important data analysis so they can uncover the low propensity voters, John McLaughlin, and get them to vote like it's a presidential. So the combination of Trump out there and Elon financing this data analysis, plus the midterm convention, which I think is a great idea. I mean, I think that's great. But here's the thing. Look, I watched Davos. The whole world was watching Davos, all right? People that don't normally tune in, Davos was everywhere. Trump did great. He gave a fabulous speech. You don't think that helped him? I don't care what the polls say. It helped him. He won in Greenland. The economy is doing well. We're the only ones growing. I mean, come on. I don't care polls. I don't need a poll to know that this guy is at the top of the world. Okay? He's a winner. He's a winner. These other little weenies are losers.
Yep. You're exactly right, Larry. But the bad news is most people didn't watch it.
Oh, come on. Everybody watched it.
No.
Everybody.
Well, I watched it.
Barbershops, diners, bars. Because there were no football games. The football starts tomorrow. The pro football starts tomorrow.
No, but our big problem is media misinformation, Larry. Last month, when I said, is the economy getting better or worse in our national poll, 37% said better, 56% said worse. However, remember that question that you helped us write? If they knew the economy was growing, taxes were cut.
Right.
That's right. That if we tell them about the economic growth story, that the rate of inflation is lower, wages are growing faster, you got a 5% GDP, all of a sudden they say 62 to 33. They say it's better.
Right.
The problem is the same media outlets that are sponsoring these bad polls did not tell the good news of that Davos story.
Well, Trump will get it out. I mean, we know this.
That's why we're going out there.
That's right.
By the way,
and you're
that's what we did in 2016. That's what we did in 2024. We got out these working class Trump voters who don't like the establishment, who've been taken advantage of, and now this is their guy who's fighting for them. We'll get them back out, but Donald Trump will lead that charge.
You got these. It's just interesting to me. Okay, the truth will win out in the end. Okay, the truth will set you free. But David Webb, you got these women in Virginia and New Jersey. With Cheryl in New Jersey, the new governor, and Sponberger, whatever her name is, in Virginia. And okay, so they're supposedly ran as moderates. Right, they're different than AOC. Really? The first thing they do is they start going after ICE. We're going to defund ICE. We're not going to cooperate with ICE. All right? First thing they do. Then they start talking about raising taxes. I mean, this is Democratic pap. There's no change. And Mandami, I get him. I mean, at least he's honest. He's a big socialist, and I'm fine with that. Plus, he's texting with Trump. But these other, they ran as moderates, and it lasted 20 minutes, and after they were inaugurated, they become Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, David.
And the fact is, they never really did run as moderates. That might have been messaging, but when you looked at the policies, they either did not denounce or the ones they openly did not endorse. You've got to look between the lines when you come to them. there's no surprise with Spanberger or Mikey Sherrill. It's exactly what I expected. The Republicans were not going to win for a number of reasons. That was pretty well laid out. The surge in Northern Virginia for the Democrats, and in New Jersey, that was just going to be a win for Mikey Sherrill by the numbers. But what's really dangerous is what their legislatures are doing along with them. For example, and I'm telling everybody, this is the warning for Virginia, in all of the things that have come out about the legislative agenda and proposals, ranked choice voting in Virginia. John McLaughlin, help me with this. Ranked choice voting will take Virginia blue and keep it blue for a long time. It's an effective tool.
By the way, one of the first things she did was fire all of the University of Virginia trustees that were appointed, by who's or what's. They were moderates and conservatives, trying to turn UVA around. It used to be a great school. Democrats ran it into the ground, and they tried to resurrect it. They're going to fire everybody, and it's going to become a woke school again. One of the first things she did, go after UVA. It's incredible. So you're right. She never was a moderate. The one here in New Jersey is not a moderate either. They're all against ICE, okay? They're going to make a stand on ICE. Terrific. Right. Absolutely terrific. All right, I got to take a break. I want to come back. I do want to talk about Davos because I think everyone in America, probably 200 million people were watching Davos on a daily. By the way, the Kudlow ratings this week were very high. We covered Davos. We did very well. I think Fox ratings were very well. It's very important. This is the world stage, man. This is Trump kicking butt, taking names, kicking butt. I love it. Crushing Russia and China. David Webb, Sirius XM talk show host, come back. John McLaughlin, my favorite pollster, he's come back. I'm Kudlow. Stick around, folks. Lots more.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So the other point I make, I haven't seen polls yet, but who cares about the polls? But I will maintain, I don't know who watched Davos and who didn't, but there certainly was a lot of publicity about it. And there was a lot of insanity about it. And Trump, I won't say fooled everybody, but Trump had a completely different course that people did not understand. And I'll start with you, Dave Webb, on this. But Dave Webb, great radio, Sirius XM talk show host, Fox contributor, and my pal John McLaughlin, great pollster. But, David, I had been saying, literally on the air, read Trump's Truth Social post, the first one, which was last weekend. I think he put it out, I don't know. Thursday or Friday. He said he was willing to negotiate regarding military bases and the whole Greenland question. He was willing to negotiate. Okay? And I kept pointing that out. I put the words up on the full screen and read them. And yet, the vast total majority of media coverage was that he's going to go to war. He's going to actually fire on NATO, or he's going to fire on Danish troops, or we're going to go to war, or he's going to end NATO. None of that. He comes in and winds up with a very sensible compromise. We're going to get what we need in terms of, access to Greenland, military bases, sovereignty, small sovereignty. Who cares? That stuff will all be worked out. Even the foreign minister of Greenland said it was a good deal, for God's sake. But it astonishes me how bad the coverage was. Now, my point here is Trump comes out smelling like a rose. He looked good. He gave a good speech. Was solid on the economy, solid on national security. And I don't think people care about Europe. They're like little weenies. These people, they're like medium to small countries. In fact, Zelensky said that yesterday in his speech, and I think he nailed it.
Look, first of all, a lot of people don't even understand the modern day positioning that Europe should have when it comes to a number of things, including their own security, energy security, China, Russia, and more. They're moving pieces around on a checkerboard. They're not even playing chess. And I'm talking more about the leaders, but also to the population and here in the United States. The importance of Greenland, just from a geographic start, it is the northeastern tip of our hemisphere. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's isolated, but it serves Arctic routes, which includes airplane routes and missile routes. It is strategically important for all of us, or China wouldn't be there with icebreakers in the Arctic, Russia growing their fleet, and America now doing that. Trump was never going to bomb Greenland. There was never a need for that. That's the hyperventilating they do on Sky News and BBC and in the boys in Brussels bathrooms or wherever else. Maybe Ursula von der Leyen threw in her share as well. The fact is that this is about safety, security for all involved, including commerce, as the sea lanes begin to open up even more. And it benefits everybody, including Mark Carney, who bloviates, but yet 75% of their trade is related to the United States. So be silent, sit down, and wait for the big boys to actually have the conversation. Fact is, Trump went out, as he often does, and he does. He goes out and he says, this is the big picture. But the teams are working out these details, as you know, whether it's a Howard Lutnick meeting, a Marco Rubio meeting, the various ministers and teams. They're doing the work to see how they can move forward. And the Danes can't afford Greenland. The subsidies of the Greenlanders is enormous, and they literally cannot afford it. I don't want to be lectured by countries that in some ways colonize parts of the world about us making an acquisition deal.
But here's another point, I think, John McLaughlin. I think the Golden Dome, and Trump did a good job laying it out. Good explanations in the speech. Now, he will have to repeat this, and this is a teaching moment and hopefully a learning moment. But I think the Golden Dome will be very popular, just like 40 years ago, Reagan's, his Star Wars, as it came to be known, or Brilliant Pebbles, as Martin Anderson talked about it, was very popular. Now, we didn't have the technology to do it. Now we do. Trump spent a lot of time. I think people are going to love this. Protecting America. And as David said, by the way, protecting the hemisphere, including that dopey dope in Canada, who was, he could lose the next election with a little bit of luck. But that's not the point. Golden Dome, it's going to be very popular. 4 to 5% economic growth, it's going to be very popular. Inflation coming down, oil prices, gasoline prices, very popular. I mean, these are just big scores one after another, and they're out marketing it. I mean, Trump's market, where is he? He's going to Iowa or some place today?
Yeah, he's going to Iowa this week.
Yeah, I mean, they're going full bore.
Yeah.
And I think it's really popular. Like, I think 60% of the people like what he's doing. All right?
Yeah.
That's what, I really believe this.
When you frame it the way you and David did, which was excellent, we have to do it, but there's a contrast. Do you realize the Democrats are against missile defense?
Yeah.
They're against a stronger national defense?
Yeah.
We have to play offense. By the way, every Democrat has voted for the largest tax increase in the history of America when they voted not to renew the Trump tax cuts. So the economic growth, the boom, they were against it. We're for it. Let's have a contrast election. Let's have the debate.
Over 2 million people have self-deported, and another 700,000 some odd have been pushed out by ICE because they're a bunch of criminals. I don't know. You can't tell me this stuff isn't popular. I am sorry. Right. John McLaughlin, thank you. David Webb, as always, my friend. You're both wonderful. We'll take a break, and then we're going to do some economics work on the other side with Breitbart's John Carney and Jason Trennert. I'm Kudlow, folks. Please stick around.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So we got a lot of good numbers this week. The boom, the Trump boom is really full scale, straight ahead. GDP coming in, I guess the third quarter revised to 4.4%. Good consumers, strong business. And, Mr. Trump, as I said at the top of the show, Mr. Trump said clearly at his speech in Davos, he does not believe growth causes inflation. In fact, he believes growth reduces inflation, certainly the right kind of productivity-driven supply-side growth. And he's dead right, and he doesn't want a Federal Reserve to start chopping away and stopping a boom just because their models have been wrong for the last 100 years. And this is a big deal. So the question now is who's going to take the helm at the Fed in the new after Jay Powell's gone. Hopefully he's gone as soon as possible. So let's talk about that with my pal John Carney, Breitbart news editor for economics and finance and co-author of the daily Breitbart Business Digest, terrific publication. Now, John, I know you agree with Trump, and anybody should agree with Trump, but I want to ask you, I was a little curveball, the name of, Rick Ryder, is that how you say it?
Yep, Rick Ryder.
So his name is, he's a Bond guy, and a very capable one, by the way. His name was surfacing this week. I don't know enough about it, but also surfacing when the name came out was he's been a donor to a lot of left-wing Democrats down through the years. The Federal Election Committee is showing contributions to Act Blue. That's the Soros operation. And in the last election, I guess, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, John Tester in Montana, Hakeem Jeffries, and Chuck Schumer. Now, I know Wall Street guys, often try to play both sides, but I don't know that I want, a guy playing both sides. I mean, this is a moment where you can really transform the Fed. And, I'm for one of the two Kevins, Warsh and Hassett. What do you know about Ryder? And did you know about this federal election stuff?
I knew that he was, most likely a Democrat. And he had Act Blue is really troubling. I mean, that is, they're a bad organization. That does bad things, as you said, connected to Soros. That's terrible. And one of the problems is when you appoint somebody a Fed governor, they're there for 14 years. The Fed, you have to be a governor to be Fed chairman. So yeah, the chairmanship lasts 4 years, but you're really basically giving this guy a lifetime appointment at this point. And so you really you want to make sure you've very carefully vetted him. And questions for him, if I were Scott Bessent, would be very different than the questions that I would want to ask Hassett or Warsh. I'm sure that he can, would be willing to say the right things about letting the economy grow and not trying to stifle growth, breaking away from the Fed's model. But what I really want to make sure is that he's not going to plunge the Fed into climate politics, into, further into DEI. That's what I would want to grill him on. And by the way, you can't just take him at his word. I'm not saying that he would lie about it, but once they're in there, it's very hard to remove somebody, particularly for policy. So you want to make sure that you are convinced where his heart lies on these things, and that he's not going to drag the Fed. Because the left wants very bad things from the Federal Reserve. They want to use it as an arm for social policy and not monetary policy. And we have to make sure we're not appointing anybody who will do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad enough, Jay Powell, who I guess is a Republican. He served in Republican administration, but he bought into all the left-wing stuff. I mean, when Biden was president, he bought into it. And that was certainly a surprise. Look, I don't want to attack Ryder. Again, he's a capable guy. Everyone says that. I had some contact with him when I was in the government. He was helpful. Okay, give me a rundown in the market. He's very good at that. But this is a transformational moment, John. You have an opportunity here under Trump to appoint somebody who will really make large-scale changes at the Fed, including throwing out their models. Because the model says when the party gets hot, take the punch bowl away. That thing's, 50, 70 years old. And Trump nailed it at Davos. Growth doesn't cause inflation. More people working and low unemployment doesn't cause inflation. You want someone that's going to get rid of those models.
That's right. And I think what you said there is very important. This is a transformational moment for the Fed. And I'm glad, by the way, that they didn't rush to appoint somebody and that they're taking their time with this, because you absolutely want to make sure that you have appointed the right person. And this isn't, a lot of people will think this is just about, when they start cutting interest rates later this year. But it's about a lot more than that. I actually think, whether they cut in, July or September or November of next year, there isn't as important as the course the Fed gets set on for the future. As you said, they need to get rid of these outdated economic models. I mean, they're still claiming that they think the economy can't grow faster than 1.8%, Larry.
Right.
We're growing much faster than that, and inflation is coming down. The model is broken. They need new people.
It's astonishing on that point. And Trump is right to criticize this. But the economics profession, so the bulls in the profession say you could grow at 2.1 or 2.2. Most of the profession is under 2. And you've got clear evidence that you're running twice as fast. And it's not over. I mean, stuff's kicking in. And so I am concerned. This business about the donations, I don't know, John. I may be making too much of it, but gee whiz, I don't know. Arthur Burns didn't give to socialists and communists. Neither did Alan Greenspan. I don't know what to think about that. Just in there, as we wrap up, I read your article. I mean, Trump gave a really, the economic part of his Davos speech was very strong, saying, great things about what we could do with the economy and how economic security leads to national security. I mean, I thought it was just like an A++.
I thought his speech on economics was terrific. I also liked that he basically said to Europe, look, here's what we've done and here's what's working. Your system is not working. And I think it's sunk in. You're actually hearing from European leaders now that they realize that they overregulated themselves. They're not going to come all the way over to the kind of free markets we have in the U.S., but they realize that they have really put themselves in a trap. And Trump was explaining, look, I liked that he criticized them on their energy policies. They're considering trying to become reliant again on Russia. And Trump's message to them was, you shouldn't do that, but two, there's no need to do that. We can supply all of the energy you want. Frankly, they could supply more of their own energy as well, but they don't want to. They have almost a religious fixation against fossil fuels, but they can get it from us. There's no reason to rely on Vladimir Putin or whoever succeeds him for natural gas in Europe.
It's like he tried to offer them a teaching moment, John.
Yes.
And I hope you're right. Walter Russell Mead, the historian, is a very smart fellow. He would agree with you. He says they're trying to change and they're moving in a more conservative direction. You're going to have to color me skeptical on. I don't know who's going to do it. Who's going to lead I mean, there is no Thatcher in Europe. There just isn't. I don't know who's going to do it. And Trump makes the point that, the U.S. economy dominates the world economy. When the U.S. is up, the rest of the world could be up. When the U.S. is down, the rest of the world is down. I mean, he was just speaking the truth. Truth-telling. I love that.
It made them very uncomfortable to have Donald Trump actually tell them the truth. They prefer the message from Mark Carney that they got, which is, sort of trying to align he's the Canadian prime minister, trying to align some sort of global resistance to the United States. That's going to fail because Donald Trump is right. Canada's prosperity depends on the United States to a deep degree. One, we are the biggest market for their products. Two, the way they're a huge energy producing country. Guess who protects their ability to sell energy around the world? It's the United States. We keep the sea lanes free. The idea that Canada is going to become some part of a third force or non-aligned nations, which is crazy, because Canada really does. Donald Trump's right when he says, look, Canada exists as a free country because it happens to be the neighbor of the most powerful nation in the world.
Of course. I mean, Carney's lost his mind. He's lost his mind. He could lose. You know, they're going to have an election. Hopefully Trump won't go back to the 51st state because that helped elect Carney in the first place. But he's just lost his mind, this guy, Carney. Anyway, John Carney, Breitbart News, co-author of the Breitbart Business Digest. It's a daily, folks. It's a must-read. Tremendous insights. Thank you, John. We'll take a break, quick break, and we're going to do some investment work with my pal Jason Trennert of Strategas Research. Ours is the bull market intact. Well, we'll ask him. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Just saw this at Truth Social posting from President Trump about Canada and China. And it's a warning that if Canada makes a deal with China, which would allow them to ship their goods into China like Mexico and then get them into the United States underneath our tariffs, that all hell's going to break through. And Trump threatened a 100% tariff on Canadian imports if such a deal is made. I hadn't seen that before. Maybe it was posted earlier, but I just saw it. And our next guest is one of the smartest people for all things investment, my very dear friend Jason Trennert, who's chairman and CEO of Strategas Research Partners, which is a top Wall Street firm. Jason, I wasn't going to go there, but I just saw it, and I thought I'd pick your brain on it. I mean, there's no love lost between Carney and Trump. But the Chinese factor and the 100% tariff, now, you know, like a lot of Trump things, that doesn't mean he's going to do it. It's a negotiating tool. But it is interesting, and there is a lot of bad blood. What do you make of it? Is this important or what?
Well, I think, Larry, it's so great to be on your show. Thanks for having me. I think, I'll give you my kind of normative judgment, which is to say I think it's great that President Trump is saying that and doing that. My own opinion is that we've been, quote unquote, at war with China for a very long time. We were either just too greedy or too naive to realize it. And I think it's terrific that President Trump is calling them out on it. I also think, as far as Canada is concerned, it is Mark, as you know, is very much part of that. Mark Carney, it's hardly like I know him, but he's very much part of that liberal elite. Right? He was Bank of England. He was a special envoy for environmental studies, all the rest of it. And I don't know. I think that people have to start choosing freedom, even in places that should be free, like Europe, that are supposedly free. So I think this is appropriate for the president to do this.
Well, you're right. Look, think of it this way: this whole business about Greenland and the Arctic and protecting the Western Hemisphere and Canada. I mean, if you look at the map, where's Greenland? It's in the Western Hemisphere. It's right near North America. It's right near Canada. And Trump's trying to protect us from Russian, Chinese, or other ICBMs and, nuclear threats, shipping lane bottlenecks and all that. I mean, Trump's entirely right, and I think he's won that. He's going to get a good deal with these military bases and plenty of access. But Carney, you're right. Carney doesn't appreciate it. He's not grateful. And, John Carney from Breitbart was just saying in the prior segment, I mean, let's face it, Canada's there because us. Canada's economy is us. Canada's oil market is us. I mean, who are they kidding? And
Amen.
They ain't doing that well anyway. Jason, with all these things swirling around, now you have strong numbers coming out on GDP. I'm going to get to your breadbasket and pick your brain. You got strong GDP. I would argue at least the 3-month changes for inflation are coming down, not up. 12-month may be more stubborn. Energy prices are going to have a tax cut effect on the economy. And the market is a little wobbly the last week or two. maybe bouncing around the news. But it's been a hell of a bull market, and I just wonder if you think it's going to continue, or where, we don't have all the time in the world. But what are you looking at right now?
Yeah, no, Larry, I do think it's going to continue because you have strong profit growth. In terms of the economic backdrop, it almost could not be better. You have very strong growth, high productivity, stable inflation that seems to be coming down, and I think it's only going to get better. I don't mean to be a homer here in terms of just rooting for the president, but it's just, if you're looking at it objectively, it's hard to get much better than what we're seeing right now, in my opinion. Now, the other thing I would say about the market that's very encouraging is that it's broadening out. And so while the S&P 500 or the Dow may not be doing particularly well, it's very early in the year, and it's not down, but it's not rallying. The other smaller cap stocks, other sectors are starting to catch up, which I think is very, very positive, very healthy for the bull market.
Well, I love that. And, it's sort of like profits and productivity and energy, and, business incentives, Jason, right? I mean,
right.
We produce to consume, and we're getting 100% write-offs, and I think people are using them. I mean, it's fantastic. Building factories and all the rest. Jason, please come on the TV show. We wanted you on. I know you were busy last week. Please come on the TV show for me, okay?
I'm looking forward to it, Larry.
All right.
Thanks for having me on.
Jason Trennert, Strategas Partners, one of Wall Street's truly great gentlemen, honestly. Folks, a quick break, and then we're going to talk a little foreign policy with Mr. Morgan Murphy running for the Senate in Alabama. I'm Kudlow. Please stay with us.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, one of the questions here, it came up, I guess, earlier in the show, but deserves a little more discussion, is does the public here in the United States understand why Greenland is important, and this whole Golden Dome, which I think is so terribly important, but, is the public tuned in, and is it being sold correctly by the president and his group, or, perhaps there's more work to be done? We welcome to the show Morgan Murphy, who's a former Pentagon press secretary and advisor to my friend General Keith Kellogg. And Morgan is running for the Senate in Alabama. So, Morgan, do you think that the president, I thought he made admirable effort, but there's so much swirling around. But the Davos speech was very good. But I think on the whole, he at least is beginning to explain to the public why Greenland is important, and why the Golden Dome is important, and why, if you look at a map, Russian and Chinese ICBMs and nuclear threats go right over Greenland towards the U.S. I mean, as a former press secretary, you think they're getting the word out?
Trump is brilliant at simplifying very complex issues into sound bites that the American people really understand. When you start talking about apex and apogees of, intercontinental ballistic missiles, I know this from having been in the Pentagon, people's eyes glaze over. And Trump just says, Greenland, we got to have it for national security. We're gonna get it. And the American people trust him and are behind him in that. And he's got really robust reasons for wanting Greenland. And he doesn't, get into the weeds on why. He leaves that to the rest of us to parse.
Well, I think the question here is, let's go to the Golden Dome, right? So he has referred to Israel's Iron Dome. Much of that was U.S. technology. Not all of it, but much of it. But this will be grander and also more expensive, right? It's got to get through Congress. Some of that money has been appropriated, I think $25 billion, but they're going to, it's going to cost several $100 billion or more. I don't care. I mean, if it's important, let's just do it. But how important is, the public, you got to bring the public along with foreign policy, Morgan. You know what I mean? You can't just jam it down their throats. You got to You got to bring them along. It's so they understand what this hullabaloo was about. And I'm thinking, he will have opportunities. He's got to sell the economy. But I think, more work needs to be done. I guess that's my point.
Well, the Golden Dome is exciting. It's exciting to me. I was a kid when Reagan announced Star Wars. K.T. McLaughlin wrote that speech for him, right? And talked about the future of Star Wars. And really what came of that is a huge research and development boom for the United States. And I feel that's what's going to happen with Golden Dome. The Israelis have proved that it can be done. A lot of people really doubted the Iron Dome could work, and look how remarkably successful that has been. And Trump's going to up that, as he does, to a Golden Dome. And it just makes so much sense when you look at R&D and where we spend it here in the United States. When you really look into the Pentagon's budget, we're digging holes in the ground right now in Nebraska to update our ICBMs, which I feel are really just kind of targets. They put the president under a lot of pressure to respond to a launch in 30 minutes or less because the strategy is hit our land-based targets, and all that's left are the subs. So we're spending $1 trillion on that. And I think Trump's looking at that and saying, well, why don't we go after this in a different way and provide a shield for the United States so that we don't need weapons like that and we can use deterrence in another way.
I was an OMB when Reagan started that. I was deputy OMB.
That's awesome.
And
awesome. I remember that speech well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically that buried the Soviet Union because they hated it. And, contentiously with Gorbachev, we wanted Reagan to give up anything to do with Brilliant Pebbles or Star Wars or whatever. And Reagan said no. And we can produce it. You can't. And he was right. I mean, it took a while, but he was absolutely right. You may be in a similar situation. The Chinese don't have a Golden Dome. The Russians don't have a Golden Dome. I mean, I know they have a big arsenal of missiles, at least Russia does. China, I'm less familiar with. You tell me, what is their defense for the Golden Dome?
Well, that's right. And that's the thing. I mean, the 80s, we were all scared to death that the Japanese were going to, buy up the whole world. They bought the Empire State Building. We were worried they were going to buy the crown on, the Statue of Liberty. And it was the huge fear of Japan. And today, our fear is China, and it is a greater fear. I'll give it that. Their GDP is, on parity with our own nearly. But I don't ever believe, I'm a Republican, and I don't ever believe that big government is the solution. And the biggest of the big governments is China and the CCP. And big government just does dumb things. So I don't believe that the Chinese will ever out-innovate the freedom and liberty of the American people. And the Golden Dome, I mean, just this kind of project which inspires young people, like Reagan's speech inspired me 40 years ago, will inspire a new generation of Americans to think differently about global defense and national security matters and keep our country safe for generations to come. I love how Trump has, I mean, you can just look at the recruiting numbers at the Pentagon, and that's the proof of the pudding, right? Under Biden, recruiting collapsed, and few people realize we lost 2 whole divisions. That's 25,000 people said, nah, I don't want to join the military. We'd never missed our recruiting number in the history of the all-volunteer force. It was a first for President Biden, and it was an ugly first, as many of his decisions were. But now recruiting is back, and we're oversubscribed. People want to join again. Trump says we're going to build battleships, and millions of boys across America look at that and say, radical. That is great. I want to join the Navy. And he says we're going to build a Golden Dome, and lots of children look at that and say, yeah, that's great. The president's going to keep us safe in a new way. And so I think that's his real power, is the power to inspire and to encourage the American people to innovate.
Great. I couldn't agree more. Great stuff, Morgan Murphy. Good luck on your Senate campaign down there in Alabama. Appreciate it very much. Folks, we'll take a quick break, and the great Peter Schweitzer is coming up. He's got a new book about Mexico, man. Mexico is a problem more than you might realize. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
My pal Peter Schweitzer, who's the president of the Government Accountability Institute, got himself a new book out. It's called The Invisible Coup, How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration as a Weapon. Just chock full of stuff. Peter, welcome. Glad you could make it. A lot of this is about Mexico. I'm reading this stuff. Mexico reclaiming their territory. Would you help me on this? What? We Mexicans are reclaiming our territory? This was AMLO, the former president. Sheinbaum, the new president, is his protege. California, Nevada, Texas, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Wyoming. Really? What is this all about?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, Larry, until you realize that this is something that the Mexican leadership has been talking about for a while. And it's the idea that through mass migration, they are exerting some sovereign control in the United States. And with that sovereign control, they are going to, in effect, reclaim or reconquista the territories they lost in the 19th century. And again, you would think this might be a kooky theory, except literally in the book, there's dozens of quotes from senior officials doing it. And they're backing it up. It's not just bravado. They have done a number of things to try to radicalize and politicize migrants in the United States. They have this thing they started in 2024 called Migrant TV, Migrante TV. It's funded by the Mexican government. They direct it, control it. It's all propaganda, specifically targeted at Mexicans and Latin Americans living in the United States here. And it's, of course, in 2024, very strongly anti-Trump, very pro-Kamala Harris. But it also, in the current climate, is radically anti-ICE, calls them fascists and Nazis, things like that. Again, this is funded by the Mexican government. But they also have their consulates. They have 53 consulates in the United States. Great Britain and China have 6 and 7, respectively. And they get involved in our politics. And I name some of the government officials living in the United States who are organizing these protests and carrying out political action. So they mean it, and what I'm suggesting here is we need to start looking at immigration through the same lens they do. Understand what their goals and motivations are with mass immigration and how they're trying to radicalize those that are in the United States.
And so that's the invisible coup.
Yes, it's an invisible coup in the sense that what we know is that there has been mass migration to the United States. What we're not aware of is that it's actually with a purpose by these foreign actors. The desire is, in their words, again, this is not me saying it, they see it as a transformative force that is going to change America. And this is the reason, for example, why President Sheinbaum of Mexico, she plays a song at a lot of her official events. The song is called "We Are More American." And what the lyrics say is that we Mexicans are more American than the gringos and the Anglo-Saxons, that they took this territory from us. So Mexico is a big part of it. Of course, China also has its own methodology, the Muslim Brotherhood and others. They're weaponizing immigration, which is different than just normal immigration.
Well, it's interesting, Peter. You don't hear much, really anything about what you're talking about just this month. I mean, you think of Mexico, okay, so we think of fentanyl, and we think of illegals, of course, and we do think of China sometimes in terms of trade. They sell their cheap goods to Mexico, which then resells them to the United States, and they get underneath the tariff laws and so forth. Yes.
Yeah.
But the cartels and all the rest of it. But you don't hear this stuff, which is why it's so interesting to me, and why I think this is going to be a very important book. I mean, nobody talks about, I don't hear the president. I mean, I don't know if he's aware of this or if you've spoken to him, but, this sounds like a threat. I mean, here's another one, from Breitbart, textbook hate. How Mexico floods the U.S. with anti-American textbooks to indoctrinate kids from L.A. to Orlando. Well, what's up with that?
Yeah, so, we've got the Mexican government believes there's 39.9 million Mexicans living in the United States. A large chunk of them are here illegally. Their children are enrolled in our schools, and, they don't speak English. And so the Mexican government, out of the kindness of their heart, I'll say that with irony, says to school districts from Los Angeles to Orlando, Florida, hey, we'll give you our Mexican textbooks so the kids can learn in Spanish. You can get them to learning English, but they'll learn Spanish. And so these school districts accept these textbooks. Well, we actually looked at the textbooks, and let's just say they have a very, very, very different view of American history, American society, et cetera. And we're all used to kind of the stories of textbooks and college textbooks and how radical they are. They're nothing compared to this. I mean, this is all about the United States is the enemy. The United States is the aggressor. The United States needs to be punished. And this is being offered in schools in the United States to these migrants. And I actually quote one Mexican official, who says that really the textbooks are not just about educating kids. They're part of what he calls, quote unquote, greater Mexico. And that is extending the cultural and the political reach of Mexico into the United States. Now, Larry, you mentioned the cartels. The cartels are part of this, too, in that the cartels have extended their tentacles into the United States, not just with the drug trade, but with their political activism. They are starting to meddle in American politics because there's two things that the drug cartels primarily want. One, they want open borders, because they actually make a lot more money from human smuggling under open borders than they do from actually selling drugs. But the second thing they want is they don't want any military operations against drug cartels in Latin America. And so what's happened, Larry, is there was a group formed in 2018 by Bernie Sanders called Progressive International. It's headed by his former foreign affairs advisors. His staff participates, AOC, Congressman Craig Zazar, a whole group of progressive Democrats are involved in this organization, which is designed to bring together progressives from Latin America with those from North America. Well, what could go wrong? What goes wrong is, as I point out and name in the book, about 33%, a third of the senior leadership of this organization have direct ties to the drug cartel. And this organization is pushing those two things. Number one, open borders. Number two, and the military assault on drug cartels in Latin America. So it is a problem that is seeping into our politics. Sealing the border, enormous success by the president, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done.
The name of the new book from Peter Schweitzer is The Invisible Coup, How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration as a Weapon. We love to sell books on radio, and this one's going to be a honey of a book. Are they involved in political campaigns? You mentioned Bernie Sanders and these cartel people. I mean, this is not something you hear much about either. They actually get involved in politics, American politics?
Yeah. Yes, they are getting involved in American politics. The people who've really perfected this, by the way, are the Chinese. The Chinese, there's a visa program called the EB-5 program in the United States. I think the intentions from people that passed it were good. You invest $1 million in the United States, you create some jobs, you get permanent resident status. This bill was passed back in 1991. Well, when you look at the history, you realize that there's one individual who was key in getting this piece of legislation passed. Her name was Maria Tsai. Turns out, 10 years later, the U.S. Senate outs her as a Chinese spy. So this piece of legislation was basically put together by a Chinese spy. And what's happened is, Larry, Chinese businessmen now dominate this. More than 90% of the permanent resident visas coming through this program go to Chinese. And here's the thing. They get permanent resident status in the United States, but they don't live here. They continue to live in China. And so the question is why would they do that? Why would they want permanent resident status? One of the reasons is if you have permanent resident status in the United States, you can legally donate to political campaigns.
Oh. Huh.
And they have done it in mass. We're talking at tens of millions of dollars. I name a lot of the donors in the book. It's completely legal to do. It breaks 80-20 Democrat Republican. But it's a way of infusing our politics with foreign money legally, which I think is a huge, huge problem in terms of the decision making we get out of Washington.
So, stepping back for a minute, so the president has effectively closed the border.
Yeah.
All right. A good thing. A damn good thing. So, but now you're saying more work has to be done. I mean, it may not be it may not be an illegal immigrant thing now. They're using other avenues and more sophisticated. It sounds to me, schools and propaganda and politics. I mean, they're already here. I love that. What did you say? 53 consulates? That's an extraordinary number for Mexico. But so we have to, you got to alert people to this. I mean, this is the closing of the border thing is good. It's great, but more work needs to be done.
Yeah. What we need to recognize is that you seal the border, it prevents more people from coming in, and we're getting some deportations of criminals, et cetera, which is good. But you have these political networks operating in the United States. And I tell you, a big problem, we've got this birthright citizenship case that's going to be held before the Supreme Court in the spring. What people don't realize about this problem, Larry, is that China has created an industrial scale a program to mint U.S. citizens. So what do I mean? Well, birthright citizenship, you're pregnant, you come to the United States, you give birth, you take your child back to China. That child, even though it's spent maybe 3 days here, is a U.S. citizen because it was born here. When they turn 18, they're going to be able to vote. China believes, their estimate is more than 1 million U.S. citizens are living in China right now that are going to be able to do this.
My Lord.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So welcome back, everybody. I'm Larry Kudlow. This is the Larry Kudlow Show. That ended abruptly. Anyway, we are here. We're going to do some stock market work. Market sort of ambling around. Got to see if there's direction. We're going to set some new records. And, of course, we have this great snowstorm and freezing weather. I don't know that has any impact whatsoever. But we have the guests, right? We got the guests. Jim Iuorio is here, TJM Institutional Services, Chicago's leading restaurateur. Jeff Killburg, CEO of KKM Financial. Gentlemen, welcome. It's funny. I was walking through my various stock sheets that Conrad DeQuatros always puts together for me, and I start with Jim Iuorio. It is true that I guess this is in dollar terms, Jim, but a lot of these foreign markets have outperformed. I mean, we've had a terrific market. Last year it's up 13. The S&P is up 13%. Since early April, it's actually up almost 40%. But you've got Japan, which is a shaky country, up 35%. This is the 52-week change. Hello?
Hello. My dog's going crazy. I'm going downstairs.
Oh, okay. I was surprised at that. Shanghai, China, up 36%. Hang Seng, Hong Kong, that's up 36%. The iShares, MCCI, emerging markets, up 38%. Now, I guess some of this is because the dollar is down about 10%. But I was surprised. Let's see, there's even more. Latin America doing very well, up 50%, 53%. Is that, what do you make of that? Why is that? What's so great about those countries? Their economies aren't very good. Their currencies got very cheap. Maybe it's a currency play. But what do you make of that? And is it going to continue?
No, I think it's a combination of a couple things. And one, you just hit on it with the currency being cheap. But two, you have to remember that for several years, it was just buy America and sell everything else. And that showed up in the euro versus the dollar until about April. And I know exactly that it was about April when the euro started to rally because I had my first trip to Europe planned in about 5 years, and it cost me 13% extra. But I think it's a huge unwind of that trade. But as far as if people look me in the eyes and say, where would you want to invest right now? By the way, I'm about to sound like Larry Kudlow and be way less pessimistic than I usually am. Here it goes. Drum roll. It's the U.S. The tax breaks and the deregulations are coming out. I'm not going to spend $1 going somewhere else. But I do think there's one major potential black swan that's lurking, and that's Japan. But besides that, I think everything in America looks fantastic. Deregulation, the investment coming home, all that looks good.
Japan hasn't grown in 30 years.
Yeah, I know.
Had grown in 30 years.
You saw the bond yield shoot up a ton on Tuesday. If that yen carry trade goes to unwind and they start to have any sort of collapse, they're going to be selling a lot of bonds and a lot of tech stocks. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that was a little scary on Tuesday. Do you give me that?
Yeah, I'll give it to you. Listen, you're right about the euro and your vacation. 13.6%. That's a good call. You hit 13%. But the yen is 155.70. I mean, that thing was 100 not long ago. That's 155. It's a complete collapse of the currency. And they don't grow.
And it's a collapse against the dollar, which is also kind of collapsing because of profligate spending from the last administration and a little bit of this administration, too.
I don't know. I think
now I lost you again, didn't I?
I mean, if you're growing at 5% or whatever, we're going to have, this is a boom. With lower energy prices, profits are very strong. I mean, Killburg straightened him out. He's relapsed. He started good, Jeff, but he just went into
I think he needs his teddy bear.
Deep relapse.
I think he needs his teddy bear. I heard he said he was scared. 10 years. Jimmy, the 10-year hasn't moved. It moved 7 or 8 basis points. Get a hold of yourself. If I was there, it's funny. I'd slap it 6 times this Sunday. But the point of the matter is that Larry's right. We are seeing earnings season. We are seeing profits, the mother's milk of the stock market. And look at the VIX. The VIX is going back under 16. So I know we had a little Greenland hiccup. I know we have another little tariff tantrum. But at the end of the day, what is driving this market? It's the U.S. consumer and profits by corporations. It is optimistic from my perspective.
What did I say that was different than that, Killburg? I said the same thing, didn't I?
It was the dogs.
I got a lot of coffee in me. I just wanted to take a swing.
No, I
love you, Jimmy, but I had to take a swing.
It was the dogs barking. We couldn't hear. We couldn't hear the whole. The dogs wanted to weigh in on their long position. So the other thing is, I wanted to ask you guys. There were headlines. I think it was on CNBC. I mean, the best CNBC headline after one day the market went down. There's capital flight from the United States. Yeah. And then the market came back strong the next couple of days. But they're talking about now a prime credit crunch or some kind of credit crunch. Bad. We're going to have a credit collapse. So I'm looking here. The Merrill Lynch high yield spread has done nothing. In fact, it's fallen. It's come in 62 basis points. And then I'm looking at the Moody's BAA spread, and okay, so that's gone up 24 basis points. So maybe that got a little too far. But there's nothing going on here. These things are relatively stable. Jeff is right. The 10 years at 4.25. It's been bouncing around in a range. Really, the low end of the range. The high end is close to 5. The low end is 4-ish. I mean, you can try to make a dire, bearish case. All right, there are times when that is true objectively, but this is not one of those times.
Who do you want me for this one?
Sure. This one has your name on it. This one has your name on it.
Okay. So the credit spreads being as tight as they are, I think, is somewhat a function of excess liquidity, not just U.S. liquidity, but global market liquidity. The Fed is actually increasing their balance sheet again, injecting more money in the economy. But I do think that there is a side of that is reflecting little risk, and I hate I always hate to say there's little risk because I do think the Japan thing's a big risk. But these media, we call them the TMZ of financial media, come out and they want everything to seem like it's bad for clickbait, and everything has to be Donald Trump's fault. Like even on Tuesday when everyone was tagging the whole somewhat collapse of the stock market and Greenland and tariffs, that was not the case. It coincided with Japan yields rising. That's why we were down. It was nothing to do with Donald Trump and nothing to do with rhetoric towards Europe, which everybody knows is negotiating, except for the TMZs of financial networks.
That's a good point. Larry Lindsay, you fellows know Larry Lindsay, very distinguished economist, former Fed governor, NEC director. He had the same point of view in his newsletter, which is a wonderful thing to read. You have to pay a fortune for it. He comps me, which is great. But he said the Japanese thing, the sell-off in bonds, the snap election, nobody knows how that's going to turn out. What's her name? Takaichi, really not that strong politically, even though she's a friend of the U.S. That was a bigger issue with respect to the financial markets than the Greenland debate in Davos. I mean, that was a bigger issue, and I think you're right. Now that's calmed down. So what happens, Jeff Killburg? We've muddled around a little bit the last couple of weeks, and we've had a tremendous run. And the Dow is still close to 50,000. The S&P is close to 7,000. Kind of what happens next?
I think we want to test the bear's nerve, and I think 7,100 is a short-term target. But what is interesting, Larry, and to agree with Jimmy, it is interesting to see that stocks are being bought on every possible dip. And what's different about 2026 than 2025 is that you are seeing a broadening out of a market. And I know the Russell 2000 is up 7%, while the S&P is only up 1%. But let's not get too excited about the Russell. A lot of those companies don't make money. And if you look on a 5-year perspective, the S&P is up 80% and the Russell is up 23%. But the fact of the matter is that you're seeing a broadening, and 65% of the S&P 500 stocks are up this year. So I love that Lockheed Martin's up 22%, Freeport-McMoRan. Intel, I know, is down 17% yesterday, but still up 22% on the year and 108% on a 1-year perspective. So Boeing, Nutrien, Costco, I get geeked out and crazy excited about these blue chip boring names. And that's why I think there's more of a sustainable bull market in these bears, that they think it's going to hit 7,100 and go back down to 6,000. I think they're going to get caught. They're going to be chasing it, and that's going to extend the market, exaggerate the market to the upside. But that is where it all coincides with maybe an announcement this week on a new Fed chairperson. There's a lot of good things lining up from a tailwind perspective, not a headwind perspective.
You mentioned Lockheed Martin, which brings me to Mr. Trump's dictum about the defense companies, which are great. We have the best. But he doesn't want them doing stock buyback. He doesn't want them taking government money and doing stock buybacks. Now, I was reading some commentary on this from some Trump haters and some non-Trump haters. You have to kind of filter through who's writing, but I get that. But the point is, all right, Trump is meddling, but in some ways it doesn't bother me because, first of all, I've been a great believer that stock buybacks are a waste of money. Okay, that's just a waste of money. You want to return money to shareholders through dividends, that's fine. The best way to do it is to just build up your profits and the price will go up. But it doesn't bother me. And the idea that you're going to have a big military buildup, right? He's adding $500 billion to the military budget. It's a lot of money, fellas. He's now at $1.5 trillion budget, 5% of GDP, which I think we need. I don't want to let them, we're going to give them money, let them build all the new jet fighters, fabulous, okay. But they shouldn't take money and use stock buybacks. I think, I know he's meddling, but I think he's right to meddle.
Yeah, but because it's meddling in defense companies. It's kind of just make believe that they're independent private companies anyway. They're biggest.
That's a good point. Yeah.
The U.S. government. So I hate corporatism and I hate socialism, but come on, it's defense. It's literally it's a government program. It's a government. So I agree with him.
No, you're right. That's a
Jimmy,
good point.
I would say he's trying to recalibrate, Larry. He's trying to recalibrate across all industry sectors. We own 10% of Intel. You may not like that, or you may like that, but at the end of the day, he's recalibrating across the sector from Lockheed Martin. It's a negotiation. It's the art of the the deal.
Well,
he is
but I don't
finding a way
Intel
for us to
thing.
save more.
Intel was
I do. That was our best holding last year in the Essential 40 ETF.
I know. Because the government
I loved Intel.
But Intel's not a good company. It's not a good company.
Not a good company.
It hasn't been a good company for 25, 30 years. It was once a great company.
Though. It's still essential, and that's why you're seeing the U.S. government own 10% of it. So the
Jeff,
reshoring, the remanufacturing.
Is a national defense thing to be involved in the chips? Is that what you're saying? Because that's not a bad argument.
I think any essential company that we're talking about, and it's the Boeings, it's the Lockheed Martins, it's all these different companies that are essential. You're going to see more and more folks want to own U.S. names. So it's absolutely. I know AMD, I know NVIDIA have beaten the brakes off of Intel, but Intel is a U.S. soiled chip maker, and that's why you're going to see it keep on going. I know it'll pull back, but it's going to be trading $60 or $70 by the end of 2026.
I don't know. I think Intel maybe should try farming or some other industry. They're not. The chip business has not been kind to them. I do think that Trump is right. He wants these defense companies to build them faster. That's what he's saying. Stop the cost overruns. Right. Be more accountable. And I don't have a problem with that. It's like the 10% credit card. Okay, I don't agree with him. On the other hand, Citibank is already putting out a 10% credit card. But then when Trump was interviewed by Maria Bartiromo, he said the 10% ceiling would just be for a year, basically a year, to help people out instead of 30%, 10%. And so I was thinking to myself, well, okay, you're meddling, sir, but if I were in there, I don't really think I'd object that much. Okay, fine. And it's not pure capitalism, but what the hell? People are paying 30%, man, middle class. Let's give them the refunds and the tax cuts. And then, they'll be in even better shape. Wages will be even stronger. Energy inflation's going down, and they'll be able to better afford credit cards. So some of his stuff, it's funny. At first blush, you think, "Oh, I don't like that," but then you kind of think it through, and it's pretty good. It's just like he sort of kicks you in the butt sometimes, and I rather like that. Anyway, we're gonna have 100% tariff on Canada. Maybe we'll talk about that in the next segment. We got Jim Iuorio, TJM Institutional Services, Jeff Killburg, KKM Financial. I'm Kudlow. I'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, somebody's got to tell me, I'll start with Jim Iuorio. I got $5,000 gold in round numbers, and I got $100 silver, okay, in round numbers. And it doesn't look like it's over yet. What is going on there? Okay, what is going on there?
It started in gold with the central bank buying, which accelerated, back in 2022 when we froze Russia out of the SWIFT payment system and central banks started buying it. So back in April, the gold-silver ratio went up to 104, meaning 104 ounces of silver by 1 ounce of gold. I know you guys know that. I'm just for people listening. So then all of a sudden, silver has this catch-up, and then comes in the story of AI and electrification and silver deficit. So it gets like this exponential tailwind for both of them. So silver has been amazing. And you know that I've been all over that trade and the gold trade. And by the way, I have sold out of 25% of my gold and silver holdings, not because I'm no longer bullish, just because I think it's prudent to do so after this kind of run. I don't think they're going to keep moving in the same direction they are. If they do, with the same velocity. If they do, I think it signifies more of a problem than anything good. But I do think it's been a great trade so far, and I think the fundamentals are still there. Again, I know you hate when I say this, but we still have too high of deficits, and we're still injecting too much M2 into the system.
No, we're not. M2 is growing at 4% year on year. I actually follow it, and this is not true. It was 30% 5 years ago. That's when you should worry about M2. But look, silver does have rare earth properties in the AI revolution world. I agree with that. And it's an industrial metal. I mean, it's like you make things and use silver. So that's the strength in the economy. But Jeff Killburg, the gold thing just makes no sense to me. I mean, deficits are coming down. I mean, they're too high. I know they're too high, but they're coming down. You just can't wait a second, the deficit. $5,000 gold makes no sense whatsoever. Unless you think that, I know the central banks are buying. I mean, China and the BRICS want to hurt the dollar. I get that. But just it's this exponential thing that's going on that I don't understand.
I think it goes back, though, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But the momentum is there. It's remarkable to see. But specific to gold, it's been a safe haven for thousands of years, almost as old as Jimmy.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that safe haven trade, it's tangible. People want to own it. So it's not just institutions, central banks. It's also a retail drive.
All right.
So it's going to go higher, Larry.
It's going to go. Now you're going biblical on me, and that's a short position right there, the biblical X. Jim Iuorio, Jeff Killburg. Thank you, gentlemen.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Plenty going on. Talking money and politics. Plenty. It's been a hell of a week. Hell of a couple of weeks, actually. There's a few things I want to review with our friends. We got Liz Peaks, Fox News contributor and syndicated columnist. Steve Moore, WABC radio host of More Money, which pops up right after this show on most of these same radio stations. Good day to both of you. Liz Peak, I have I don't know what the right phrase is, a burr under my saddle. Maybe that's the right. You might want to Google that. I'm not sure I got that completely.
I know that expression. You bet.
Okay. And it's J.P. Morgan debanking. And it's Trump's lawsuit, $5 billion. I'm going to read it. This is the J.P. Morgan reaction response. Quote, "We do close accounts because they create legal or regulatory risk for the company. We regret having to do so, but often rules and regulatory expectations lead us to do so." I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means, and I think it means nothing. It's a non-denial denial, and I think they made a political decision in 2021, early 2021, regarding Donald Trump, and it was a negative decision. But I don't think they had the right to do that, and nobody held a gun to their head. I mean, and the regulators under Biden weren't even in place at that point, or barely so. And so that's the burr under my saddle. Debanking is a terrible idea, and this argument that they're making has no meaning whatsoever.
Well, I thought actually the case, the rebuttal or whatever, the defense that the attorneys raised on the Trump organization's behalf was actually excellent. I mean, as they pointed out, the organization was fully in compliance with all the rules and regulations at that point. There was, to your point, Larry, absolutely no overt reason to do it, except Jamie Dimon is a very deft political actor. All big CEOs hope to be as clever with their politics as Jamie Dimon is. He was Obama's favorite banker until Obama lost credibility and popularity, and then all of a sudden he turned on Obama and the regulatory spaghetti that the Obama administration was spooling out. First and foremost, Jamie Dimon wants to be friendly with the current set of regulators. So, yeah, Biden's people weren't in place yet, but he knew full well, given the rhetoric of Biden and this coterie of cabinet would-be people, that they were going to hate the banks, and that Elizabeth Warren was going to be right there, guiding them all the way. So I think it was a completely purposeful move. I think he did debank the Trump organization, and to the defense's point, it was really. This isn't like debanking me, which would be pretty easy. I moved my account to someplace else. This was a major business.
A lot of money.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. Exactly.
And money is money.
It cost Trump a lot, and there was no particular reason for it.
Money was money. I mean, Steve Moore, it was a political decision. I think Jamie Dimon made a mistake. I'm not privy to it. I have actually spoken to him. A few of us had dinner with him months ago, and it came up, and he gave the same really half-baked argument about regulatory risk for the company. What does that mean, regulatory risk for the company? There's dollars in the bank account. He should like that. Banks are supposed to take deposits, for Christ's sakes. They're supposed to help businesses. And the Trump business, was at that point a very healthy business. And I don't, it's just, I don't know where this will go. All right. I have no idea how this will end. But it's just something I don't want it to pass because I think debanking and, politicizing the banking system is a real bad idea. I would say the same thing for a Democrat, okay? I mean, it's not like it was black money or drug money or something like that. This is legitimate money sitting in accounts for a thriving business. And it's not a good precedent to let go.
Well, there's no question that conservatives were debanked during the Biden years. No question about it. I wasn't, but I know a lot of people who were for their political beliefs. Now, I don't know enough of the facts of the case, but it is true that the Biden regulators were strong-arming these banks to debank the Trump administration and people associated, with Trump.
Yeah.
And so I do think the villain here is more the regulators than the banks themselves. Because look, banks only make money if they have deposits, right? So they don't have an incentive to. And I've talked to Jamie Dimon about this. And he's like, "Are you kidding? We spend billions of dollars trying to get people to open accounts with us. We don't want to eliminate them."
Why didn't he just say no? No.
Well, the good question.
No.
I mean, I don't know, but
because
it is true.
At that point he didn't know, and very few people knew that Donald Trump would mount probably the greatest political comeback in history. But my point is, banking decisions should not be made on the basis of political decisions. All right, banks are different, and J.P. Morgan is a great bank, and I'm not beating it. Jamie Dimon's a very smart man. Okay, now, I'm not beating up on him. I'm just saying I think he made a really bad decision, and it shouldn't be allowed. Something has to happen here. Maybe Trump regulators. Somebody's got to just say we're not going to do this anymore. All right, now whether that's legislation, Steve, or to go through the court case, I don't know. But you can't let this slide because it'll come back again, and it'll bite somebody else in the rear end.
Well, then the question is, do we want, the every time someone loses their account, they run to the government to sue the bank? I mean, I guess we're in an increasingly litigious society. I'm not so sure lawsuits are the solution to this. But we'll see how it turns out.
That's it? You're just going to leave it like that? I wanted fire and brimstone.
I don't have the burr under my saddle on this one.
All right.
Well, I think the president could have shamed Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan for having done this without a big lawsuit. But you know what? This guy has had so much done to him, and I don't want to sound like the hallelujah chorus here, but the reality is everyone was talking about, oh my gosh, Trump is going to want vengeance. You know what? I would want vengeance. I would want some.
Exactly.
I would want some accountability for all the lousy things, the spying on my campaign and the fake, the fake lawsuits and the impeachments and the completely ridiculous J6, hearings in Congress. There was a lot of bad stuff, not to mention 2 assassination attempts. So
I don't know. Liz, you're making a very important point. And it is, all the left is now on, and the Democrats are like, oh, Trump is going after his political enemies. Well, who started this? I mean, my God, they raided his house. They went through Melania's closets.
Yep.
They tried to indict him 5 times. They spent a whole year and a half on the Russia collusion hoax, which was just a
tried to take all his money away. This Letitia James tried to take all his money away.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I've been moving more and more into the vengeance camp. I don't know.
Vengeance is mine, says the Lord.
I started out on the fence, but I think I'd just go ahead and get them all. I mean, it's just not good. All right. Something else. Elon Musk is going to be a big player in the midterm elections. Okay. He's back in the Trump camp and so forth. And I want to reiterate, I had Reince Priebus on last night. Really interesting analysis. Whatever Elon's going to donate to Republicans in the midterms, and it'll probably be a lot. Reince made this point, Liz, that Elon, when his people go into very heavy data analysis to find voters, actually low propensity voters for midterms, people that might turn out in a presidential don't necessarily turn out in a midterm. And those are a lot of Trump voters, and that they have really good data analysis. You know, who are they? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? How do you get them out? And I think the Elon Musk factor is right now very underrated.
Well, I think that's true. Obviously, the first thing is money, but the second thing is just brain power. He can collect, as we saw with Doge, an enormous number of brilliant people to, as you point out, analyze, sift through data, et cetera. And remember, all this started with Obama. Remember, Obama's team elected him, got him elected partly by ferreting out voters and assigning them into different categories and targeting them in a way that had never been done before. And I think now it has evolved to a real art. And I'm sure you're right, Larry. I'm so happy that Elon Musk is back in the GOP camp because, boy, I would not want to be up against him. And I'm sure the Democrats are very worried about this. And with all the rejiggering of districts and stuff going on, there's a lot of moving pieces here. And I think it's going to take a tremendous amount of analysis to forward this. And to your point, Trump voters are not necessarily Republican stalwart voters. They don't show up in midterms necessarily, and they don't maybe even connect Donald Trump with the fact that XYZ candidate is running in their district. They need to be motivated. They need to have targeted advertising. And I think, I think Elon Musk could be just unbelievably helpful there. We
were talking about all this fake polling at the top of the show with John McLaughlin and some others. And it's right. You know, these polls, Steve, New York Times, Siena, Quinnipiac, and others, they're giving Republicans 27, 28%, maybe 29% of the split. They actually got 35 in the last election, but Trump got 50. So you've got this scale, and you have to sift through that and find out who's doing what. One is fake news, completely bad polling. The Karl Rove article in the Journal used polls that were just so bad. But on the other hand, you need to know who are the rest, because Liz is right. The Trump voters were not all Republican. I mean, it's a 15% gap, 35 to 50. And that could be determinant if you can get the extra 15% out. If you could get a fraction of that out, get 5 points out, 4 points out, Steve, that could carry the entire midterm for the House and Senate. Oh. Well, do we lose Steve?
Sorry. The only polls that really matter are the elections themselves. And, look, I'm very concerned about this. We've had elections in Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Florida, and Republicans have gotten crushed in these races in the last 3 or 4 months. So I think we shouldn't be complacent. The Democrats are on a rampage, and they're angry, and they're out there voting. Now, look, I think what's happening, Larry, is that there is a reality of the U.S. economy, which, as you say every night, and you're correct, it's a booming U.S. economy, and there's a perception. And the perception has been, well, the economy isn't so good. I think what's going to save Republicans in the midterms, Larry and Liz, is that how can voters ignore one of the best economies we had in our lifetime? And so I think they've got to really talk about the great. And there was this story about how Trump is not happy with the way his team is selling the economy. Look, I think Kevin Hassett and the rest do, and Scott Bessent are doing a great job on that. But I guess I'm a little flummoxed by this, because why are voters so angry when we have one of the best economies in our lifetime? That's the big question.
Maybe they're not. Phony polls. I'm serious.
Well,
phony polls.
Except Republicans are losing elections. I think it is because everything does seem pretty darned expensive. And again, and I've said this over and over, and I'm going to write about it again this week, the idea that Democrats are the party of affordability is completely nuts. I mean, they're the ones raising minimum wages and adding all kinds of regulations that mean everything gets more expensive. And by the way, folks, when you raise taxes, it doesn't just go into the ether. Costs go up. So, I mean, it's really amazing to me that California politicians are talking about affordability. Has anyone looked at the cost of living in California? They run the state, and everything costs 50% more.
Gavin Newsom is going to run as the affordability candidate.
Honestly, doesn't it make your hair stand on end? I really, I'm very discouraged about that. I really think part of the problem is that we had this big reconciliation bill, the big tax bill, and Republicans were just scared to death of it. I don't know why. They felt like they had to defend it because, oh my gosh, the wealthy are getting tax breaks. Well, guess what? Those are the people who pay taxes. And yes, when you lower taxes, they do get a tax break. But all the breaks in there for people getting tips and Social Security and so forth, who you name me one congressman who's been out there on the stump really talking about this bill. There aren't any. And that's part of the problem.
My favorite affordability guy is Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Elizabeth Warren second. We got to take a break. Liz Peek, Fox News contributor. Steve Moore's More Money coming up on most of these same stations right after this show. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back, folks.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Yeah, we're talking money and politics. Two of the best. Liz Peek, Fox News contributor, and Steve Moore, host of More Money, coming up on most of these same radio stations right after this show. Steve Moore, what do you think of the midterm election convention? Midterm convention for the GOP.
Why not? Trump's changing all the rules of the game, isn't he? And I love this. And, by the way, what I'm really, really excited about what they're doing on the 250, it's going to be they're going to turn the whole mall into a celebration of America. And, I'm just so pleased that we have a pro-America president who's going to be president on our 250th anniversary.
And you can really, but this midterm convention, Democrats have done this, however unsuccessfully, but, it could be a real extravaganza, including the 250th birthday. The thing could be melded or merged into one big message, and it'd be very powerful. I don't think people have really discounted this yet or figured out just how powerful it might be, Liz.
Yeah, no, I think, look, what did people love about the 2024 campaign? The Republican convention was awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was funny. It showed President Trump in an absolutely wonderful, humane light with his grandchildren, and it was really upbeat and joyous. And I remember that was a watchword of the Kamala Harris. Tim Walz campaign was joy, and boy, was it dour. Everything about it was so grim. And so, yes, if they can, I think pulling this off is a brilliant idea, and I love it. And by the way, it gives Trump a way to showcase Trump and his administration nationally without having to go to every single district that where he's needed, and there are a lot of those, I suspect. So this is a great way to kind of pull the party together and show, and again, talk up the accomplishments, Larry. We need to do more of that.
Well, I agree. It's a marketing tool, and it could be a very powerful marketing tool. And the Democrats are going to do it, and I want the Democrats to do it. I want them to. I want them to showcase all their policies as much as possible.
I want to highlight Abigail Spanberger. She's been in the news a lot lately. Let's talk about how running as a moderate and then flipping and talking about every woke policy, hiking taxes, et cetera, is really a good game plan.
Which is the one? Is she the one in Virginia?
Yeah.
She's in
Virginia.
She wants to close the military, the VMI.
It's unbelievable.
And
she is like turning the state on its head. And again, no one voted for that.
And she's firing all of Glenn Youngkin's appointees to the University of Virginia. He's tried to bail out UVA.
I live in that area, and she ran. The race was an incredible race because you would have thought she was Ronald Reagan.
Right.
The way she ran.
Yeah.
And,
right.
I'm a centrist, and I'm pro-growth, and I'm pro-business. And within 24 hours of being elected, all of a sudden, there's a blizzard of taxes, and we're going to get rid of the right to work laws. We're going to turn the state upside down.
Phenomenal. So I want that. Let's showcase all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wherever they want to do it. They can have it in Minneapolis, the Democrats.
I think if they have a panel discussion of Mamdani and, I can really see it now. All the things Americans hate in one party. This is our platform. Welcome.
Well, I think it's just interesting. All these polls and supposedly that people don't like what Trump is doing. I don't believe any of it. I think it's all a lot of crap. But I'm saying, if you have a midterm convention, which has never been done before, and you're going to get all these stars and you're going to showcase these policies and really explain them. I mean, I think it's a very underestimated midterm election thing. Is what I think. Very underestimated.
I agree.
And, if Elon Musk wants to underwrite it, that's fine. You can do all the data analysis. But you're going to, the GOP has a good bench. The Democrats do not. With all due respect to Gavin Newsom, the GOP has a good bench. The Democrats don't have a good bench. By the way, Steve Moore, you've got to get out there. Did you read Trump's speech in Davos and his attack on the Phillips curve?
It was unbelievable.
You can grow the economy without inflation, huh?
Exactly.
Where are you? You're sleeping at the switch here. This is tremendous stuff Trump is doing. We haven't heard this since Reagan.
It was a frontal assault against the Phillips curve,
yes.
And he basically told the rest of the world, do what we are doing.
Right. It's the best thing I've seen in so long. I actually read the speech. I mean,
it was fantastic.
You have to print it on two sides because it's quite long, but I don't know.
It really was.
I think I got to get out of here. Thank you, Liz Peek. We appreciate you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Larry.
Thank you, Steve Moore. Steve's coming up here right after this show. Thanks, Larry Kudlow. It's great to be with you, folks. Next weekend, we'll be back.
Thanks for listening to The Larry Kudlow Show. You can hear The Larry Kudlow Show Saturday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Busted. The reviews are in. Awesome. You wanted more Joe Concha. And we heard you. More Joe. More show.
We're talking to you. Under promise and over deliver.
Joe Concha. Weeknights at 9. Plus Sunday mornings at 11 on 77 WABC.
Jimmy Kimmel no longer tries to be funny. Not that he ever really was.
Joe Concha. Weeknights at 9. Plus Sunday mornings at 11.
Democrats defending cocaine coming into the country.